I mean, we always knew we wanted to have 2 kids. Miller was about 2 years old, and we just thought 3 years apart would be perfect. We really didn't have any trouble getting pregnant. Found out we were pregnant with a girl, and I was thrilled. You know, looking back, there were some signs that I probably should have seen as something more than just being a happy, lazy baby, which is what I really kind of assumed when I first started noticing that she was different than her brother. The first thing I noticed, probably around 4 or 5 weeks, is when I would put her on the changing table to change her diaper, and her arm would fall behind her back, and she wouldn't try to pull it out. It was just laying behind her back, and I thought, that's kind of weird.
So William was born, and he passed his Apigar, and everything looked great. And so we took him home, and we had him at home for 30 days. And on the 30th day, I laid him down to go to bed that night. And when I woke up the next morning, I realized he had slept through the whole night, or so I thought. And when I went to look at him, he was laying there like trying to cry, but couldn't cry. And so I picked him up and I put him on his stomach and thought, oh, he'll lift his head. And he just laid there. And that's when I called my pediatrician, and I was like, something is seriously wrong with my kid.
We took her to her 2-month appointment. She was 8 weeks old. And I mentioned to my doctor that she hates tummy time, and she doesn't seem to be kicking her legs as much. She immediately said, yes, she has low tone. And she kind of listed, well, there could be a sign of something serious. And one of the serious things she mentioned were the letters SMA. I look back now and I'm like, the fact that she even knew about SMA to even mention it was actually a huge blessing.
Within 2 weeks, he was diagnosed, and by that point, he was already on a ventilator, couldn't breathe or eat on his own by the time we even got the diagnosis. When William was 4, we had his sister, Mary, and she was diagnosed with SMA as well, type 1. And when she was born, she was able to get a treatment when she was just 2 weeks old, and that has dramatically changed her life. Being that SMA is a rare disease, a lot of pediatricians, which is who you first take your baby to, aren't really looking for that. They think they kind of look for other answers first.
We were fortunate in that first meeting to hear about the opportunity to participate in a clinical drug trial. That day ended up being a very significant day in our life and in Emmeline's story.
If children with SMA are able to receive treatment, they can also not require so many medical interventions and also be able to live a more freeing life.
I think an important lesson that we learned in the clinical trials and also in this past 18 months as we've started to treat these patients in the clinic is that the earlier we treat them, the better they respond.
We're almost 3.5 years into it now. I felt like for the first time it was like we could look up and like take a breath and really evaluate like life and start hoping and planning. I'd say really we're in the phase now where we're like, okay, like there is a future.